Okay. It's about to start, he said. So as soon as the intro play, I'll be getting ready to talk.
Where the conversations run deep, Chat Over Popcorn starts now.
Welcome to Chat Over Popcorn, where the conversations run deep. My name is Angela Anson, the host for the show. Today I am here to chat with Paige Cook. Paige is a healthcare professional, a dedicated wife, a mother, and also when Paige was only 5 months pregnant, Paige lost her father. And just 3 months into her postpartum, Paige lost her brother during the pandemic. You can imagine how postpartum challenges, coupled with a pandemic and the loss of two major family members, can have an effect on Paige's wellness in how she showed up as a wife, a mother, and an employee. Paige is going to share with us how she ultimately coped and healed. We hope that our conversation today would inspire you in your own grieving process, whether you have experienced a tragic loss or a separation from a loved one. Paige, welcome to Chat Over Popcorn.
Thank you, Angela. It's a blessing to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, I'm so glad you came on the platform. Your story is so inspiring. I am blown away by what you have endured, and I'm hoping our conversation today is going to be a blessing to many people who may come across your story. So, before we get started, why don't you walk us through the unique relationship that you had with your father, your brother, and which of the laws had the most impact on your life?
Well, I think I've always described myself as the proverbial daddy's girl. He was the provider, the one that the rock that just always made sure that we had the roof over our heads, the education we needed. My mom was a stay-at-home mom for a number of years, and she definitely, I loved her very much as well. But there was something very special about my relationship with my father. Even his mother, my Nana, who I called my Nana, she was like like a major matriarchal figure in our entire family. And I feel like I've always called her like a second mom. So it's like my father's side of the family. Both sides had a special place, but my relationship with my father, especially as I got older, got much more close. I will say that it was around the time my father allowed, and my mother allowed my husband and I to live in the basement of the home because of the fact that it actually was renovated, and it was really nice in Northwest DC. And I said, okay, well, I want to go back to school, and we wanted to save for the wedding. So they allowed us to stay there. So my husband got to know my father and my mother. And so he just became, we got much closer as time went on. And then when it was time for us to move out, it was after my mom had passed. And I remember sitting in the kitchen and was getting ready to plan the closing for the house and everything. And I looked at him and I said, Dad, when we leave, are you going to be okay? And I remember him looking up at me, and he had long eyelashes and dark brown eyes and looking at me, and he just did like this. And we decided to move him in with us. And my husband allowed that. So it was awesome. He moved in 2017 when we bought the house. And I got to get to know him so much better because it was like him in our space, and how that dynamic was just so unique. And as he was getting older, he was starting to experience early signs of dementia. And it was just such a crazy transitional window because I found out I was pregnant, and I was so excited to have the thought of he's the last of the Mohicans. My husband lost both of his parents, and my mother had passed away back in 2012. And then, so he was the last of the Mohicans. So I was really excited to have this baby with a grandfather. Mm-hmm. So I had a lot of expectations around that. And he had some heart conditions and issues, but he was overall pretty healthy. So I just will say that he was 82. So he lived a very long and wonderful life. But I will say he passed away suddenly out of nowhere. And so I'll just say that what comforted me, just as a highlight of that before sharing my brother's story, or the story of my brother, is the fact that he didn't experience long pain. My mother had cancer, and so she went through a much different experience in walking with her through the loss of her. But it came out of nowhere. I'm 5 months pregnant, and it hit me hard. And then after, and we can go back to that, but then as far as my brother, I'm the youngest of 3 children, and my brother Damien is the middle child. He's 6 years older than me, was 6 years older than me. And he was challenged with mental illness. He definitely had shown signs of isolation, and I tried to reach out to him. And it seemed like when I had Vivian, he didn't come to see her. He didn't come visit. And I tried to get him to come visit. But there was something blocking it. And he would go through these phases due to his mental illness. So it was really challenging because that hit me suddenly, because 3 months into Vivi being on this earth, Vivian is my daughter's name. And out of nowhere, I'm just told that he's gone. He's gone. And to find out that he was gone, and I asked, how did he go? And he drowned.
Oh, man. Wow.
He drowned. And everything in me stopped. It's one thing when you lose a parent that's 82, that's lived a life. It's another when it's a sibling that you grew up with, good, bad, or ugly, that you love. And I felt like I was one of the only people with his mental illness that actually could connect with him. So trying to deal with all of this loss at the start of a pandemic with a brand new child.
Was before we get into that one, was his drowning accidental or suicide?
So unfortunately, due to the fact that COVID there were so many people unfortunately dying at the time. Hospitals were overrun. It was mid-March, but by that time things were really escalating in terms of even the vital statistics and being able to get back the cause of death. It took literally, I found out they could only say drowning. They don't know how long he had been in the water. They found him on the 15th, but they had found keys and a jacket. A woman who was, I guess, running along a path where he was, found keys and a jacket, took it to the precinct. And that, I believe, was on the 7th of March.
Oh.
So, yeah. So to this day, the death certificate just states drowning. It doesn't say suicide.
Yeah.
However, there are some things in my spirit and in my oldest brother's spirit, we're the 2 remaining children, that he very well may have committed suicide, but we don't know. And that's a hard part of this journey as well.
Yeah.
Not knowing.
The unknown. Oh my God, that I don't know why I did not even ask you to prepare myself for this. Like, what was the cause of death? Oh, I'm so sorry. That is heavy. That is heavy. And as a new mother, to have to reconcile that, to deal with that, and the challenges of postpartum. Man, let's talk about how did this affect you as a wife? Did they also affected how you bonded with your child? You know, you've never had a child before. This is the first time, right? So this is supposed to be this beautiful moment that you're connecting with your newborn, and to have to deal with this loss of your father, daddy's little girl, and then a brother who suffered mental illness, and not knowing what truly caused his death, whether it was accidental or by choice. How did that affect your marriage, your bonding process with your newborn, and ultimately how you showed up as an employee, even though you were on maternity? But nonetheless, let's talk a little bit about just your social relationship in that context.
So it's kind of hard to talk about any of this without kind of starting with the foundation of my spiritual life, because God has shown up in ways that I can't even begin to articulate and give it the true glory and power that it's manifested in my life. But I will say that a lot of the things that have happened, my husband is, I firmly believe, is an anointed man of God, destined for greatness. And, you know, no marriage is perfect. But I will say that one of the reasons why many people that know me know that I said, as imperfect as he was, he was the first man that I ever dated that was on his knees every night and every morning. I had never seen it in my life in anyone that I had dated, that no matter what state of mind they were in, whether it would be we had a good time and had a few drinks the night before, or whether or not it was an argument, it didn't matter. He was on his knees every night and every morning. And so he was, that's how I knew he was going to be my husband. And God is continuing to work on us. But I say that when my father passed away, when I got the word, it was about 6 o'clock, I want to say 6 o'clock in the morning, because I was supposed to be with him. So let me tell you how God works there, just in the fact that I was supposed to be on the trip that my brother Damien, who passed, was with my father when he passed. We were all supposed to be driving up to Philadelphia for my aunt's baptism. That night, I was tossing and turning, and I could not get comfortable. I was 5.5 months pregnant. I could not get comfortable. My back was killing me. We were supposed to leave at 5:30 in the morning to get on the road for an 8:30 service, the baptism in Philadelphia. I come downstairs, I tell my father, I see him sitting on the bed all dapper with his little suit on. He was ready. He had all his bags all nicely laid out on the bed. And I just told him, Dad, I can't go. I can't go. I can't go. I don't know what it was. It was everything in my spirit was like, I can't go. I can't go. But it was weird. It was like, it felt like a spiritual no, not a physical, I can't get up and push through. You know, you don't want to wake up in the morning. You know, I don't feel like going to work, but you know, you got to go to work. It was one of those things where it was just like, no, the spirit was like, you don't need to go. And so he was like, are you sure? You know, this is really important to you. I was like, I can't go. I can't go. And I actually snapped a little bit at him. And then I said, I'm so sorry. And then he was like, no, I understand. If it's the baby, you know, baby first. I remember him saying that. Long and short, ended up letting him go, and I went to sleep. And then I get a phone call about an hour later. It's my brother Damien, who's passed, telling me my father was on the floor, not breathing, and the ambulance just got there. I immediately jumped out of bed, got on my knees, and began to pray in the spirit. My husband jumped out of bed and got on his knees and prayed next to me and called the pastor of our church, and we began to pray together.
So beautiful.
And it was weird because it went from, God, don't take him from me. God, give him peace. But it still hadn't processed that we're driving to the hospital. Damien meets us there. And we're sitting in the lobby. And what's interesting is they wouldn't allow us to go back to see him. And then a nurse came out and said, "Come with me." And they took us into a room that had a picture of Jesus on the wall. And I lost it because I was like, no, because I know what this room means. I know what this room means. And I immediately fell to my knees. And asked God's help. And my brother, being disconnected and dealing with his own way of processing this, because he was there with my father, was like, he's in a better place. He's okay. He's in a better place now. So not what I could hear. It was irritating. It was like nails on a chalkboard. And I remember, and my husband kindly moved him out of the room so I could have my time with God. And then he came back into the room and we prayed together on our knees. And then a peace came over me that he's in a better place. He didn't want to. He was actually 1 week away from moving out of the house because we realized he could not be there with a newborn. He was dealing with early stages of dementia. So for 3 months, we had been working out a way for his transition into a home that was literally going to be 5 minutes away. It was in a nice community. We had just paid the $1,000 deposit for him to move in. He didn't want to go there. Right. He didn't know how to be on his own. So anyway, that was that experience. And with Damien, I didn't have any preparation. There was total shock and awe. And I knew I had to be calm with my father because I'm 5.5 months pregnant. It's almost like I knew that I had to keep it together for Vivian. I had to. So I pressed into the word. I used what I call my faith squad from the church. They prayed over me. They continued. So relationships changed drastically. I had an abundance of overflowing of support of Christian, non-Christian, just love, and it was overwhelming. But I will say that the relationships that I have grew exponentially. When you walk with somebody through these types of things and you do share that love of God and know who Jesus is, it just empowers you in a way I can't even put into words. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how, it's supernatural how I've been able to show up as an employee, show up as a wife and mother. So I'm sorry for the long-winded answer, but that's...
No, it's great. It's great. You and I have been talking, right, for the past couple of months, but we've never gotten to this level of detail, right? I guess part of it is, I know we're going to come on the platform, but this is good because a lot of people, I love the experience you shared with your husband, and I talk about being spiritually yoked together, right? That is so key. Imagine going through what you went through and having a partner who does not share your faith. At that point, you are going to go through this grieving process alone, and to hear that your husband was there for you, that's amazing. That is amazing. As far as 3 months postpartum, as you know, you give birth to Vivian and your brother Damien passing away, did you struggle with bonding with Vivian, or did it still come natural as if nothing has happened? How did you deal with that?
So we have limited time, so I'm just going to say that I've called the pregnancy with Vivian supernatural. Mm-hmm. And she is the manifestation of supernatural awesomeness, because she was such a joy. Yeah. And when I say that, it was hard. I don't say, it's almost, they say you give birth, you go through all of the pain, and then it disappears. It just mm-hmm. goes away. You don't remember the pain. You just mm-hmm. remember the joy when you held her.
Yeah.
That was where I lived. I mean, she had colic. I could not sleep. I wanted to breastfeed for as long as I could. It was a whopping 6 weeks. Unfortunately, with just all the stresses that were going on, and then with not getting any sleep because she was colicky, I still look back on it as just, she has been the absolute platinum lining in the midst of all of this. My joy literally has been Vivian. When she smiles and she has two dimples, I said, God, and that's Damien had two dimples, my brother who passed. And I said, oh, that's what you, okay, God, I see you. I see you. Because I look at her and I see some of the most beautiful aspects of my brother and my husband in her. And she's a miracle. So through all of the trauma and the pain, and even the sudden, my brother's loss was worse. And I will say it was worse because it left me feeling like I wish, like I should have done more, or could I have done more? Whereas my father, I feel like I honored him to the best of my ability, moving him in with us and making sure he went to doctor's appointments, made sure he got his medication. It wasn't the same level of pouring in with my brother.
So you have some regrets? Do you have some regrets around your brother's death?
I pray, I ask God to deliver me from the feeling of, I wish I could have done more. Because I do know in my heart of hearts that I loved him, and he knew I loved him no matter what. But at the same time, it's hard not to think about, should I have checked on him more? Should I have, taken over? Because he had, I knew he was struggling with mental illness, but he's so articulate and a great communicator. And so it would be difficult for you to say, I need to take over his life, because he can't do it for himself. But yet he was dealing with a condition that
you can't see, right? A lot of mental health. Mental health is, and I'm so passionate about mental health because mental health is one of those things that you cannot see, right? You cannot see, and some people hide it so well. So you talk about your brother and how articulate he is, and how on the surface he probably appeared as someone who really have it together, but deep down he was suffering. Was he under any treatments or?
Yeah, he was actually he was on state assistance. He was a substitute teacher. He had aspirations. He had aspirations to, kind of take over the world in terms of transforming. He went to an interfaith center. And so he believed in, all religions coming together to serve a single God, which I would entertain the conversations, and I lead with love in those discussions, because at the end of the day, I would always just ask him, is your faith in what you're believing in holding you up in those hardest of times? And if it is, then I know that's God. But yeah, he was on Abilify, and he was but I don't know that he was taking it the way he should. I don't know that I did find out later that he had stopped his therapy. He had stopped, he cut off his state assistance. So there are some things that, for me, paint a very clear picture of what he was going through and the level of darkness he was living in leading up to that. But
now, as far as, society, when people experience any tragedy, a loss, traumatic events, those around them, their social support system, are quick to say, it's time to move on. You have to move on. You have to be able to get over it after a certain point in your grieving process. Let's talk a little bit about that. Have you even moved on? Or what I hear is the appropriate language to use is move forward, or move through, or move with. Where are you?
I am moving through. I definitely am a coper. When I say that is, and I've learned a lot because my husband found through his work, he works in mental and behavioral health and substance use addiction, and he actually met this woman in his work, and he said, my wife needs to talk to you. And she specializes in grief. And this was about 8 months ago. And what I've learned through that journey is that I was jumping over the despair, to stay strong, to stay there, to be a mom, to be a wife, to be an employee. And at the time, I wasn't in a rush to go back to work. So I took long, extended maternity leave. I didn't go back until about 8 months after she was born.
Nice.
It was a blessing, and God provides. He provided that space for me to do that, and I work with an amazing organization that allowed me to do that. But it also helps. I've been there for almost 10 years, so I was able to earn some time to do it. But as far as the moving through, she made me face things. She's still making me face things in my past that I have looked back on with rose-colored glasses to be able to, again, move through the pain. So I'm in the healing process of moving through, and I'm doing it with a team, though. I'm not doing it by myself. I'm doing it with my husband, and I both go to individual therapy as well as couples therapy. We're active in the church. Vivi's godmother is actually the pastor of our church. So God is in everything. And then I have a wonderful, nice, small, very core group of friends that check on me regularly, and we connect. I love and know a lot of people, but when you go through things like this, it's usually fewer than one hand that are really breaking their necks to check on you ongoing, and are forgiving of you for not necessarily reaching out. Right. Because one of the things I've experienced is that, and it's understandable, people feel like, well, I did this and I sent this to her and she hasn't responded to me. And, and I felt guilty for a while, because you want to be able to show how much you appreciate all of the people that care about you, but you're in the midst of trying to just get through your stuff. It's so much. It's so much. So God has helped me to kind of prioritize my energy.
Let's talk. You talk a lot about your faith and your spirituality, which I fully respect and love about you. And then you also talk about going to therapy, seeking professional help. I want us to dissect a little bit when it comes to the Christian community. And I'm a Christian, so I think I have authority on what I'm saying. We lay our burdens, we cast our burdens to Christ, right? We trust that God would pull us through any difficulties that we are going through. But in your experience, you mentioned while you had your faith in Christ, you also sought professional counseling, therapy. Let's talk a little bit about how, as a Christian woman, how important it is, or even just a Christian, not even a woman, just a Christian, right? How important it is that, yes, we have our faith, we have God that we rely and lean on, but then God has also blessed some people with the intellect, the ability to help us cope through grief. So share a little bit more insight on how you were able to couple the two, professional counseling, which is a secular thing, and then your faith in Christ.
So I've always felt as though anything that we have as a gift that he has blessed us with is unique to us. We each have unique gifts. and unique skill sets that he has blessed us to be able to exercise to help the masses, not just ourselves. So I've always had the philosophy that, and also I will say my mother was manic depressive. So therefore understanding that mental health has been a part of my experience my entire life.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is I've always felt like, you know, God gives us what we need, and he gives it to us through his children. And she is a Christian therapist.
Good.
So when it comes to the resources that God provides us with, I'm just a believer that we're not supposed to limit him. We're not supposed to limit him. He gives us blessings and gifts in all sorts of packages and sizes. And this is why, you know, I see him as love. And if he loves me, he's going to provide. He's my father. He provides, right? So the therapy side of it allows me to better understand how beautifully and wonderfully made we are from a scientific standpoint. You know, our brains are, you know, complex organisms, and we have synapses that fire, we have hormones, we have implications of what happened to our traumas from our childhood that manifest as adults. That all of these things we wouldn't know if he didn't impart wisdom and the science through his children to be able to cultivate that knowledge and for us to use it to help each other to get through these things. And it doesn't mean, I've never separated science from God. God is science. And I think that's the mistake that often gets made, that as Christians, it's either or. It is not either or. It is one and the same. If you believe he is all things, the Alpha, the Omega, then the science is part of that. So that's just my philosophy on it. So I've been blessed, again, that he's given me a team. I have someone that I do pay for every week. My job knows Thursday at 1:00, don't call me. I am not available. That is my time to actually communicate to someone who can translate it back to me in a way that connects the science with my spirit. And if you can't do that on your own, then that's why God gives us these gifts of therapists.
That's amazing. Let me, you know, you said something, and as you were talking, my mind just went on a different topic, where the fact that you said you pay this person, right? So you are fortunate enough to have a career that you are able to take care of your mental health, right? I'm in the insurance industry, so I have shared many times my frustration about how we handle behavioral health and mental health in our country, and the fact that if you have diabetes, you can easily go to your doctor and get it managed through your insurance. But we don't do a whole lot of you know, efforts and energy around just taking care of people's mental health in the space where you are able to afford a therapist, right? You are paying out of your pocket, I assume. Is that correct?
Yes, the money therapists don't cover the whole.
Yes, so so all the health plans out there, if you are working in the health plan industry and you are listening, y'all got to do a better job, okay? Y'all got to do a better job in covering for mental health. Look,
Amen.
If I could get a therapist that I can talk to every day and I know my insurance is covered, I would do it. Just the mere fact that you have a third party that can just listen to you when you are going through something, who will not judge and provide you an objective mirror and view into why you are feeling what you are feeling and how to deal and cope, that alone is a blessing. So I get frustrated to find out that, you know, the fact that our healthcare system don't invest in mental health, right? We don't invest in behavioral health therapies. And so as you were talking, you said you pay for this. I'm thinking about other people out there who don't have the resources, the financial resources to cover for mental health, to just pay somebody for an hour and talk to them. If you did not have the financial resources, Paige, how else could you have better coped?
Well, I would say that beyond a shadow of a doubt, I'm humbled and blessed that I am in a position to be able to take advantage of, therapy. I still pay a decent amount weekly because the therapy isn't fully covered. And you're absolutely right as far as the healthcare industry at large needs to pay closer attention. And I believe they're starting to. I think the pandemic, and one of the silver lines of the pandemic is that it's shown a spotlight on health disparities and the importance of supporting communities and with mental health. And also, we can go on, but I'll just say that if I didn't have the stability of a therapist, I would say that I feel that because I have the Lord, I would still be fine.
Yeah.
But would I be able to go through as quickly? Would I be able to show up as present as I've been able to? I don't believe I would have been able to do it as well as I have been able to with the therapy. And I've also, and the Holy Spirit has definitely been guiding me too in other areas in terms of diet and exercise. It's like we know, that that's important, but it's hard when you're in the midst of trauma to kind of think about self-preservation that way. But I will say that I would like to think I would have been divinely inspired to maybe do more in the health and fitness side to kind of compensate for what I didn't necessarily get from a therapist, because I do firmly believe that our mental health is connected to our physical health.
Oh, absolutely. All of the dimensions of wellness is all connected. It's all connected. So before I let you go, Paige, I have one more question for you. Which of the stages of grief did you struggle with the most? If you believe in the stages of grief, I know there's a lot of research out there that, look to debunk the old stages of grief that somebody came up with once a long time ago, sometime in 1960 something. So if you believe in that, that whole denial, anger, acceptance, bargaining, all of that, right? Which was depression, big one. Which of those phases did you struggle with the most?
It was two. I was angry, and I was also in denial with my brother. It was I couldn't, if I really don't know how I would have been able to get through it without my therapist with my brother. Because it was just such a shock. It was such a blow they both were huge blows, but the way you process it when you're talking about a parent that was 82 that had some health conditions, you can process it a little differently than someone who is not even 50 yet, that is gone, and how they went, and the way he went, and the lack of understanding just bred so much anger and denial that I was able to only get through that really with God, and with the help of being able to have a therapist that just and we didn't even spend a lot of time on that on him, but it was just the right things to think about at the right time, that allowed me to process it, to move into what I'm in the acceptance phase. But I think one of the things about the 5 stages of grief is that people think, oh, you're in acceptance and then you're done. No. Acceptance is the longest stage, because you constantly have to kind of come to grips with the reality on holidays. You have to come to grips with the reality on birthdays. My brother's birthday was the day before mine. So every birthday I have now, I'm going to need to go through the process of accepting that I'm not calling to wish him a happy birthday the day before my birthday.
Right. Right. You carry the memories with you. Yeah. You are carrying the memories with you, and you are accepting the reality of it, but it does not mean you've moved on. You've just moved through your pain, like you said. Wow. What an amazing conversation this had been, Paige. I just, I'm in awe with your strength and your courage and just what you have been able to endure um, during this pandemic, during your pregnancy and postpartum. As a new mom myself, I have all the respect for you. And I thank you for being so vulnerable and being able to share your story. And I'm hoping that if anybody out there is watching your story, just to hear how, as a Christian, how you held so strong to that faith, and to not just say, I'm a Christian and that is enough, that you still sought out therapy, right? Mental health is clearly at the forefront right now because it has been perpetuated by the pandemic. But to hear that a Christian woman like yourself, a dedicated one at that, was able to still see the beauty and blessing that comes in professional therapy, and to use that to cope through your grief and still going through your grief, right? Because like you said, you are in the acceptance phase, and it is ever evolving, and it's a dynamic thing that you are going through. I want to thank you so much that you were so brave and open in sharing your story, and I trust your story is going to inspire many, many people out there in their own grieving process.
Thank you, Angela.
I can't wait to bring you back. We need a part two to this conversation. We need to check in on how you are doing, 6 months down the road, and see where you are and the impact your story is going to have on many people. I want to thank you so much, Paige.
Thank you. And I'll have my popcorn next time.
Oh, yes, please. Get that popcorn next time. Get that popcorn. Get that popcorn. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. And I hope you were inspired by Paige's story. And if you are going through your own grieving process, remember that at the end of the day, everybody grieves different. One person's grief is not going to be the same as your process. Therefore, learn to embrace the memory like Paige is doing. She's embraced the memory and the loss, and she's pushing through it. She's not letting go. She's not moving on. She is moving forward. Remember, guys, our truths are best lived when we dare the moments. Until next time, take care. Oh, Paige, thank you. No, we are done. Cut.